Mac, you spent nearly 4 years as a fund manager at Tedco, and we read that that is where you developed the idea for RareBreed VC. So can you tell us about some of the challenges that founders were facing that led to the idea for RareBreed Ventures?
Yeah, so it was interesting because my time at Tedco, that was my introduction into the investment world. And so when I first got there, I was on the seed investment team. I'm a junior person on the team, so I'm hustling, I'm grinding, I'm learning everything I need to learn. But at the time when they hired me in 2016, they were having issues of investing in enough Black-led companies. And what the local community said was, look like us, market to us, and we don't have access to friends and family capital to compete for seed funding. And so Tedco was really, thoughtful about answering the first two, but that piece about friends and family capital, they were struggling with. And so here I am learning about, getting in the seed investment and picking seed companies and being part of the team for that. And then I got really passionate about this friends and family thing. So I led an initiative to create this PreSeed Fund to invest in Black-led startups and eventually women and minority-led startups. But even with that, working at Tedco, we were investing from the state of Maryland. So every company we invested in had to be located in the state. And then the other thing was, we thought that during the pre-seed fund, we were going to invest in companies really early. We thought we could invest like pre-product, pre-revenue, all that. And what happened was the deal flow was immense. And so the quality of the companies was just a lot higher than we thought we were going to find. And so then you got this thing of, we started investing like everybody else, where it was more based on traction than it was based on the quality of the potential company idea. And when you're investing that early, sometimes you just got to take a bet on a really amazing idea. And so I saw that there were times where we would bring in entrepreneurs who didn't have a product yet, but were building products in spaces that nobody else was thinking about, like truly, truly unique things. Like one thing you find in venture, like it's not often you hear an original thought or an original concept. It's always like some version of or some piece of something else. But like we were meeting entrepreneurs that had truly original ideas, and there was no way to support them because we were still picking companies based on like who had the more traction, who we thought was further along, because that becomes an easier way to sort through your deals. And I fundamentally thought there was a different way to do it. And so that became frustrating to me. But I learned a lot in that process. And really, when you think about RareBreed VC and we think about, our thesis and the companies we invest in, so we invest in companies primarily outside the major tech hubs. We will participate in companies there, but we try not to invest in Silicon Valley, New York, and Massachusetts. Why? Because I spent the beginning of my career investing in companies only in the state of Maryland and found some really incredible companies, right? You can do that anywhere. We also do larger check sizes at pre-seed, right? So our target check size is 250,000. The reason is because at the state, we did $40,000 and $50,000 checks, which was enough to, get people going, get through their MVP, really start to show some things, but typically wasn't enough for them to move as fast as they could. And what we saw was all of our top performing companies leveraged the money from the state to raise more money. Well, we could have gave them more money up front and had a higher upside in the long run. So that became big for me. And then the two types of companies we invest in are, tech-enabled or software-based products that have a clearly repeatable or unique customer acquisition strategy, or physical products that are in industries that have lacked innovation in 10 or more years. And the thing was, like, our top performing companies and the companies I always got the most excited about fit those two categories. And so the one thing that was unique for me when thinking about my thesis and stepping out on my own to raise my own fund was the fact that I was able to back into my thesis and back into all these things that make a rare breed. So that's kind of how that came about.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned earlier about your role at Tedco, and I read how you launched their pre-seed fund to invest into Black founders and how you grew that to an annual budget of $1 million to invest in all minorities. So like, how do you think your experience as a fund manager at Tedco in helping grow their institutional fund will shape your strategy as an emerging VC?
It's just having the experience, right? And also, having the experience and having a track record to point to as I'm raising my fund, right? Being able to show people that I've done this work before. Like raising a fund is hard. Like fundraising is hard for everybody. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an emerging manager, like this stuff is hard, right?
Yeah.
But being able to point to, work I've done and entrepreneurs I've supported, and it's really, it's given me a chance to build on my skill set. Like I wouldn't be here without TEDCO, right? Like TEDCO is the reason why I got the opportunity to even start investing. And it was the place where I learned how to be a good investor. And so, or at least I think I'm a good investor, I don't know. And so that's really what that was. And the idea of launching that pre-seed fund, that wasn't really unique for TEDCO. That was more like that entrepreneurial spirit, right? Because like at the time, there was a lot of ideas being thrown around. And so I decided I wanted to do this pre-seed fund. And I was trying to figure out how to structure it. So I basically structured it to look and feel a lot like our seed investment fund, just with smaller dollars. And then I went ahead and talked to the folks at the Harbor Bank of Maryland's Community Development Corporation, which is the nonprofit arm of Harbor Bank, which is a Black-owned bank in Baltimore. And I actually talked to them about putting up half the money for the first year. And so when I gave my bosses the proposal, I already had in the proposal that we had half the money like agreed to from a local bank, right? So I was like, it's a public-private partnership. They're putting up half the money. Like it's a no-brainer. And not to say my bosses were super excited about the fact that like I went ahead and was like facilitating partnerships without, like one, I hadn't even been there a year. Two, like I hadn't talked to anybody about it. But like for me and like the person I am, I just go and do stuff. Like as an entrepreneur, like you just do. Like you worry about everything else later. Just go ahead and do first. And so that's kind of how that came to be. And once it happened, like I just really put in the time and the effort to make it work. And then, I got some teammates and, got more support from the organization over time. And then eventually the governor put it in the budget and the legislators approved it to be $1 million annually. And hopefully that allocation will grow over time. So I'm super excited about all that.
Wow, you planted your seed and now you have to watch it grow. Yes.
Sometimes it's hard though, like there was a step away, like, that was like my baby. And now it's like somebody else is working it and running it, Like every now and then I'll be like, maybe I should go back a little bit.
That's what's going to happen with RareBreed. It's going to become like it's going to become a fund like 100 years from now. It's going to still exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And other people are going to be running it. So yes.
Absolutely. Like people like Hime. That's what you're aiming for, Hime? trying to take my job already? It's cool, man.
No, I'm not. I'm perfectly fine on that. And I think you're so good at your job too, because you're really good at selecting and identifying like up and coming entrepreneurs. So I think what's the next question that we have is like, could you define what a rare breed entrepreneur or founder is?
So I get that. Like really it's the thesis, but every now and then I talk about, and I've been talking to more and more fund managers about this. Like, what does it look like when you see your thesis in the wild? Like, when you see an entrepreneur just like epitomizes the thesis. And for me, it's, that really scrappy entrepreneur who didn't have all the resources and day one figured out how they were going to get their customers and came up with like some really, really crazy or unique idea, or, the founder who's creating a product in the market that nobody's ever thinking about. I never even considered, but still has the fundamentals of like it being a venture backable business, right? So, so Femi from Scholar Me, that young man, I talk about him all the time. He probably gets tired of hearing his name come up in my ears. But like the idea that, this kid fresh out of high school, who calls himself a growth hacker and who's done some things before, starts the company as like got 25,000 users in his first 3 months by using a Venmo hack. Like, who does that?
That's crazy.
Like, it's so crazy. And he was so young and like energetic and like he was so passionate about this problem. And like today, his company's, raised millions of dollars, it's gone through YC. But when we made the first investment of 40K, like it wasn't any of that, but it was like recognizing that he was a rare breed entrepreneur. And so like it's almost one of those things like when you see it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of metrics and things I can point to, but you feel it when you see it, right? And even still, you know, we still got to go through due diligence and things like that. And sometimes you think you see it and you start doing some due diligence. It's not really what you thought it was, which is why due diligence is so important. But, you know, if you look at like, you know, Google did the Black Founders Fund. With the Google for Startups did the Black Founders Fund. You go through that list, man, there's a bunch of rare breed entrepreneurs on that list. You know, that's an incredible list of 76 amazing companies all across the country, right? It's you know, they're there. And, you know, especially the ones that aren't in the tech hubs or don't have the traditional backgrounds. And, you know, maybe I'm biased, right? Like I don't have a traditional background. Like I'm a VC, but I don't even have a college degree, right? Like I dropped out of college my junior year. But I dropped out of college my junior year to get a job as a government contractor. And like by the time I was 21, I had a 6-figure job, right?
That means you're a hustler, man.
Time.
That's crazy.
I mean, it was crazy. It may seem crazy to everybody else, but for me, it was just like natural, right? Like I applied for a job and they told me they were going to pay me more money than either one of my parents had ever made in their life. I was like, all right, go time. I don't need school no more. And then from there, it's just like, I recognized the value of shamelessly plugging yourself. So if you notice, I do a lot of, you know, tweeting, and I used to be bigger on Facebook and stuff. And if there's ever an article about me, I am the first person to share it. Right? Because the big thing is
the brand.
I mean, but the big thing is like nobody's going to support you more than you're going to support yourself. Right. And so like, I just recognized that early in my career. And so like, I would let my bosses know when I did good stuff, and my coworkers would get so annoyed by it. But you know what? When it came time for promotions, guess who got promoted? When it came time to name like a team lead, guess who got named team lead? When it came time to take over a special project, guess who got the special project? Because you keep yourself top of mind. And being top of mind has real value.
Wait, so how do you, I guess there's like a very thin line between like personal branding and bragging. So like, how do you, you know, maintain that? I don't know.
No, it's the same thing. There's no difference.
Okay.
You call it what you want. Like you can say what you want. Like it's the exact same thing. Like if I post an article saying how great I am, then that's me bragging about how great I am. Like
okay.
You know, like you can still maintain being humble and knowing that everything that's come your way has been earned, and being thankful for it, while still letting people know what you do. Like nobody's going to tell you that I don't work hard, but then nobody's going to say I'm not appreciative for what I do, and that I don't understand. Like it's a privilege to do this. Like, you know, there's a lot of people out there who want to be fund managers and like, hey, we need to make it easier for people to become fund managers. Yes and no. We need to make the opportunities, you know, open to everybody. But like the idea that you get to manage millions of dollars that belong to other people, it's not a right. Like nobody has to give you their money. Like there's nothing that gives you the right to manage millions of dollars of other people's money. Like if you don't do your job well, you lost somebody else's money. It's not like that's not a privilege, right? Like that's not a right. It's a privilege. Like the idea that, you know, somebody should give you, let's say, $100 million fund. In order to get $100 million fund means you're taking money from institutions and pension funds and colleges. Like if you lose that money, you affect the timeline of those funds. That means people who are looking to these organizations for their pensions, the amount of years they can keep getting money from those pensions just got shorter because of you made mistakes, right? Like that's like nobody like you don't deserve that, you know. And I recognize like it's like this is a unique position, a unique job. But you know, I'd like if it's not humble bragging, it's bragging. Like, you know, me bigging up in myself, and I'm shameless about plugging myself because you gotta big up yourself. No, like nobody else is gonna do it as much as you. And there are other people who feel differently and they don't like it. But, you know, I don't do it for them.
Before we go into the next question, I definitely want to backtrack because I think you like hit another interesting hot take. Because I love how like RareBreed Ventures, like our focus, like we're all Black fund managers. We all try to invest in Black founders, but you're not just applying the RareBreed definition just to Black and brown founders. Like you see RareBreed in everyone, especially who has like the opportunity, the hustle to be able to do that. Do you think like there should be more dollars positioned, or like Black fund managers should be focused on Black entrepreneurs? Like what's your logic towards that type of investing opportunity?
So being frank about it, probably yes, because here's the thing, right? If you think about like in the grand scheme of things, we've been so far on one side of the spectrum that you pretty much have to go all the way to the opposite of the side of the spectrum just to get back to a middle ground, right? So force feeding some money to some Black founders, I'm here for that, right?
Okay.
But in general, the more diverse the pool of VCs are and fund managers are, the more diverse the pool of companies we invest in is going to be. So like my hope is when people look at RareBreed Ventures and look at our portfolio, they're going to see what looks like a melting pot of individuals, which is essentially what our country is, right? So I want our fund to look like the country at large and the world at large. And so that's the hope. Are we going to be perfect? Probably not. Are we going to try our best to get there? Yes, we will. Are we only going to invest in opportunities that we truly believe have the chance to be billion-dollar companies? Absolutely. Like there's no compromise on that, right? And so that's the way I think about it. But you know, I'm rooting for everybody Black, so we down for that too.
I love that answer, Mac. That was exactly what I was looking for. Awesome.
Yeah, and one thing you spoke about earlier was the challenge you found at TEDCO with the friends and family round. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of the pre-seed investing for minority founders?
Yeah, so you know, typically to get started, your first form of funding is the 3 F's: friends, families, and other fools. And that's because these are people who truly believe in you or giving money to support you. And may not necessarily be looking for a financial return. Like, yes, that is the goal. Everybody hopes that everybody's going to get rich. But if you don't, they're not, like, their opinion of you is not going to change. Well, depending on who you are and where you come from, you may not come from a community of folks who have the ability to give you $1,000, $5,000, $20,000 to go towards you building a dream. You might not have a network of people who you went to university with or who you worked with who have the ability to do that. And so then your ability to grow your company, you're just on a different playing field, and it makes it harder. It doesn't make it impossible, right? Like when I built my companies, like I didn't have that either. Like you just have to build from the ground up. But then I also recognize, and so you know, like the idea of investing that early, there's some value to that. But then I also recognize when we think about venture, especially like in the early days of like tech investing, like in the early days of the internet, if you wanted to put a website on the internet, you had to buy servers to house your website, to put them on the internet. Like you literally had to have hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, just to put a website on the internet. There was a time where that was the standard for investing. Like that was normal. Like that's just what you did. We don't do that anymore because it's become so much cheaper and easier to start businesses that, you know, investors wait till companies are far more de-risked. But that means you've created a new gap, right? And so I think pre-seed should be a place to fill that gap. And it's a very unique skill set, right? Like it's really hard to evaluate, you know, pre-revenue or pre-product company. Like it's not an easy thing to do. And, you know, when you see it happen in Silicon Valley, it's usually people who have enough money where if it doesn't work, like a surrounding error, right?
Yeah.
For RareBreed, like that's a real check that we just missed out on, right? And so we have to be really clear on how we think about it. But that opportunity, if you can get that right, like there's real opportunity there. And so I'm just the kind of person, I don't like leaving money on the table. And I also recognize that some of those opportunities don't exist if you don't do those types of investments. Like I'm pretty sure if you talk to some of the founders who got funded out of the PreSeed Fund at TEDCO, if you talk to them, ask them, would they be running their companies today had they not got that funding? There's a portion of them that probably tell you no. They'd probably be doing something completely different, right? And so I've recognized that, and that's why, you know, pre-seed's so powerful to me.
Yeah, and you mentioned evaluating companies at the pre-seed and seed stage is very difficult. So like, what is your approach to that?
Well, it's really about the founder mindset. So for physical products, it's a little different, right? So if it's a physical product in the market that's lacked innovation in a long time, you know, we can come up with a really good marketing plan and a way to kind of push that and flood it into the market so that it can get a foothold before, you know, competitors start falling out the sky. If you're talking about like a software, a tech-enabled product, there's really around the founder's mindset and the way they think about customer acquisition. And so what I would say is, for us as a team, we love founders who are obsessed with customer experience and customer acquisition. Like founders who truly, truly care about how to go about acquiring customers, or thinking very differently about how to acquire customers and how to build around their customer experience. Those are kind of like the founders we key in on. And like, you don't have to have a lot of customers to show that, right? You just need to be able to show how, you need to know how you get your customers and show that you can continuously do that over and over again. Well, that's something we can back every time.
Yeah. Physical product seems like very difficult, because it's like, how do you know when a company will either be a small business or a Warby Parker? So I don't know. It seems very difficult or challenging.
It is challenging, but that's why that
The marketing
industries
strategy.
that have lacked innovation is really important. And so like a big one for me is like in the hair care space, right? If you think about it, if you go into any like hair shop or beauty supply shop and you walk down the aisles and just look at the tools in the aisles, they look and feel a lot like all the tools that were there since we were kids.
Yeah, that's true.
Like when's the last time there was a new blow dryer? I think the hair dryer that Dyson came out with, it just looks slightly different and became like a big deal. like think about that, right?
Oh yeah, true.
So like they still look the same. If you look at combs and everything, like we have the Tangle teaser, but like the majority of everything else is like this all the same stuff we've had since like I was born. You can't tell me that there's no room for innovation there, right?
Yeah.
And so if you build a product in a space like that, my fundamental belief is like you have a much higher chance of people, you know, jumping on that, just because like there's just nothing else.
Yeah.
Right. And so that kind of stuff gets me really excited.
Yeah, and I think definitely my next question is more on the founder profile. Do you believe that people need to quit their jobs to go raise a pre-seed and that kind of thing? What's your type of logic around that?
You probably don't need to quit your job to raise a pre-seed, but if you get funding from RareBreed, you probably got enough money to quit your job. So let's go full time, right? Do you need to be full time at the time of investment? Not necessarily. You know, I'm willing to back very different profile of the founders because, you know, I was that founder, right? Like, you know, I know what that looks like. I'm also willing to back solo founders. A lot of VCs don't want to do that. So just because you're a solo founder doesn't mean that you can't do this. It also doesn't mean you don't have a team, right? Like those are two very different things. I also know that the idea of not backing solo founders is just all about how much support you can get in the early days. Because what we know is like most founding teams break up by the time you get to your Series B of funding. Like that's just like a normal thing. So I know like by the time a company to a Series B, like there's only going to be like one, you know, founding member left, you know, in the C-suite, you know. So like it tends up being that way anyway in the long run. And it doesn't always happen that way, but you know, we've seen it happen enough to know like this is how this stuff works. And one of the top performing companies out of the PreSeed Fund for the state of Maryland is a company, Elite Gaming Live. It's a solo founder. But he's building an amazing product, doing really dope stuff. Like Elite Gaming Live is an after-school esports company that incorporates STEM education. Like the day I met him and he told me that, I knew I was going to work with him and give him money somehow. And I told him that. I told him that day. And here we are like 2 years later, like his company's doing great and raising money, and you know, it's really cool to see.
Cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So we know you're busy, so I guess, do we have to close out now?
I do have another meeting I gotta jump to. Okay. You can get one more question there if you want.
Oh yes, one more question. So can you tell us about any resources that you recommend for founders or aspiring VCs that you think would be beneficial?
Aspiring VCs and founders, follow me on Twitter. I put up a lot of good stuff at Matt Conwell, Matt the VC. Follow me. Good books to read: The Founder's Dilemma, Lean Startup, Venture Deals, and then the last book is a book called The Business of Venture Capital.
Yeah.
Those 4 books are really good books. Also, you know, people, you know, feel differently about Jason Calacanis, but his book Angel, about the way he does angel investing, the way he goes about angel investing is very professionalized, and it looks and feels very similar to like early stage venture. And like literally, like that's the way like most early stage VCs think. That is a great book to break down for founders and VCs to really look at early stage venture and raising early stage money. So those 5 books are really good books to start with.
Thank you so much. One, thank you so much for your time, and we definitely appreciate the conversation and all the advice and taking us through RareBreed Ventures. It's going to be amazing. We know it. So thank you for your impact too.
Absolutely. This was fun. And Ime, you know, just because we're on here and we're doing this interview, can you please tell everybody what your title is and what you have to do with RareBreed? Just here having an interview, you know. But you know, let's put you on the spot, young man.
Associate. Just keep it short and sweet. I'm
So you work at RareBreed, like full disclosure. that's what it is. Oh, good to know. Just want to make sure that you plug yourself as a member of the RareBreed team, but cool.
Congrats, Ime.
I'm part of the interview.
Congrats, Ime.
Yeah, I'm happy to be part of the team. Happy to do this interview with you, Mac. This has been fun.
You know how crazy it was? I announced the launch of the fund, and like Ime got almost as many congratulations as I did. I was like, yo, what is this about?
Ime
like,
has Twitter clout.
He does. He has real Twitter clout. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh no, he teaches me a lot about networking from the first time we met. So that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. But thank you for having me. This has been fun, and hopefully I was helpful to somebody listening.
Definitely. Thanks. Bye.
Peace out.
Later.